Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Okay. We're back. We've hydrated. We've hopefully made our restroom trip. We good for the next however many minutes. This is our second. This is what happens during free agency week is we're just on call, ready and waiting for any major Viking news. Of course, we got done after 90 minutes on the initial live stream, and the Vikings did sign a cornerback, Isaiah Rodgers, who we will talk about. Really sneaky, interesting signing. But the big headline here, Sam Darnold, according to multiple reports, is closing in on a 3-year agreement with the Seattle Seahawks for, according to Diana Rossini, $110.5 million. That includes $55 million guaranteed. Judd, your thoughts?
You know what? This is about what I think that we all thought Sam would probably get, right? Because it started off like, well, is he going to get more than 40? And then, of course, factor in those last 2 games. But my thoughts are this. I think this is great. I think Sam deserved his payday, and Sam got it. And the reality was, I don't think there was ever a real chance in hell, unless he was going to come back here for much less to basically be a backup, that Sam was going to come back here. And just putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, when the Geno Smith trade went down on Friday, it became very abundantly clear that Darnold was going to go to Seattle, almost certainly. Now, Pittsburgh did pop up, and we had talked about Pittsburgh for a month. But the reality was, I think that what you lacked as of Thursday night was a team that clearly was going to pursue Sam. And then once Smith got traded, it became clear that Sam, who, by the way, played a great game in Seattle this season, and that was a hell of a performance. I also think that for all that there's probably questions about, well, who's left there, who's going to play there. The offensive line's not good there. First of all, Seattle's got time to fix things. Second of all, I don't think at the end of the day, Sam Darnold was in a position to turn down a payday. Like, he had a great year. There were some blips for sure. And quite frankly, we don't know if this is him now, right? But much like with any quarterback who sort of pops up at the age of 27, 28, if you have an opportunity to become a free agent and cash in, no matter how you do in your next stop, you probably should take that. I think this is a win-win. And this is also a win for the Kevin O'Connell Quarterback Rehabilitation School. Because this again shows you that what can happen if you come here and you truly get the experience, right? If you don't shortchange it, if you truly get the experience, this is, if I'm a quarterback who has failed and I'm at a crossroads and I still want to play and perhaps get paid, I think this is a great selling point for what Kevin O'Connell can do for you.
Yeah, how about that? Listen, your career is teetering on the brink of you being a college offensive coordinator here in the next couple of years. Come on in here. We will make sure that you go through all the right training, all the latest quarterback educational tools, and we will resurrect your career to the tune of $110.5 million. Mm-hmm. We talked earlier when Seattle became a front runner, or even earlier today on the other live stream, that there's no more DK Metcalf. They are in transition mode with some of the pieces on offense on that roster, but they love to run the ball. It's also a place where you can kind of settle in on the West Coast. It's much more of a laid-back media market, having lived there for a couple years, which fits Sam's personality. He's not going to have the New York media. That's why the Giants just never fully made sense. Why would you go back to that? Perfect market for him. I think fans are going to love him, his demeanor. He's going to make big plays down the field. He's got Jackson Smith and Jigba, a running game. And I wouldn't be shocked. They've lost Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. They've got draft capital. I wouldn't be shocked if they went and signed, like I brought up Stephon Diggs. I don't know. I'm just throwing names out. They could get him another weapon. So really interesting signing. Love it for Sam Darnold. One of the most fun random seasons in the history of Vikings football. I think, he's going to go down as one of the more lovable figures in Vikings history. And they didn't need to make it anything other than a a 1-year fling. Like it didn't. The Vikings played this perfectly. They moved off Cousins. They resurrected Darnold, but they didn't get caught up in the 35 touchdowns. And, oh, man, we don't know what we have in JJ, so let's go give $35 or $40 million a year to Sam Darnold. Now, I guess when I say they played it perfectly, I mean like from a personnel standpoint. We could look at this contract and debate now again. Could they have gotten a little something from the Seahawks in a tag and trade? I don't know. He winds up coming in below the $40 million a year, but it is $55 million guaranteed on a 3-year contract. Did they play it a little too conservatively by not tagging and trying to trade him and just force the leverage? Maybe, but you're going to wind up getting probably a 3rd-round comp pick. That's a big enough contract now where he's probably going to garner a 3rd-round comp pick next year.
Yep.
So you have the fun season, you pop up, maybe you get a 3rd-round comp pick, but you clear out that cap space, and now I think it's official to say this. It's the JJ McCarthy era, right? Like there's not the Rodgers stuff is headed toward Pittsburgh at this point. It is McCarthy and then rumblings of whether Daniel Jones signs with either the Colts or the Vikings as we sit here right now on Monday afternoon.
Imagine, I guess it's a 100.5 contract. It's not 110. It has been updated to that, but still a nice payday. It is hilarious to me though that the QB dominoes that fell here post the Stafford going back to LA are Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. Imagine that a year ago, that these were going to be the 2 quarterbacks coming into the market that are going to try to set things off. It is kind of unique. But yes, it is the JJ McCarthy era now.
And imagine that, a guy that you took 10th in the draft, the first top 10 pick in the history of a franchise that began in 1961, that you are going to hand the reins to him? Are you kidding me? Look at the danger there. No, of course it makes sense. And I would love to see Jones come back here. I would. I think it would be good for the Vikings. I personally think it would be good for Jones. I think if Daniel Jones goes to the wrong team and starts, like Darnold can now, because he's getting paid. Like once you're getting paid. So if Daniel Jones locks in for 3 years and 100.5, good for him. But he's probably going to get a 1-year contract, and it's going to be, hey, we're going to give you the starting job. And he's going to likely fall flat on his face, and he's going to decrease his value even more. And all of the good that O'Connell's workshop did for Jones will be out the door. Yeah. So I think from a personal standpoint for Daniel Jones and the Vikings, I can't say this enough. I think he should come back, even if he doesn't start. He's going to go through the entire program. He's going to be with a stable team. Seriously, like look at the amount. How many teams right now, in your opinion, are stable quarterback environments? There are some. I'm not saying that there aren't, but I don't think they're plentiful.
Yeah, there's 6 to 8 of them. Yeah, but this is near the top. So now that the math is out here, it is, to Dex's point, Diana Rossini rescinded that. It's $100.5 million deal. So it is essentially the Baker Mayfield contract, but minus the inflation. It is the Baker Mayfield contract. It's $33.3 million a year. So we'll call it like $33.5 million a year, which is way lower than I thought it was going to be. So I'll take a huge L on this whole timeline of, I thought 40 plus million, maybe 45, because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 9 quarterbacks in the league averaging at least $50 million a year. And that list of 9 includes Tua, who can't stay on the field for a full season. Trevor Lawrence, now you paid him on potential, but he has not lived up to it yet. Jordan Love, who's tied for the second highest quarterback contract in the NFL. Although the Josh Allen, it's actually 10 because the Josh Allen figures haven't come in yet. So call it 10. And Jordan Love played 8 great games. So Sam Darnold, a former top 5 overall pick, who breaks out and does everything last season that everyone thought he would do 5 years ago. It took him a while to get out of the Jets and Panthers stink. And you get that dude with all that upside, the down the field ability and the athletic ability too, sneaky athletic, for $33 million a year. That's pretty wild. And it actually makes me believe that maybe the Vikings did spend some time thinking, sheesh, you mean we can get that productivity for half the cost of Dak Prescott? It's like if the price is that low, I guess maybe we should spend some time thinking about this. But that is like bravo to Seattle. And if you're the Steelers at this point, or I would even say the Titans, these teams that are desperate for quarterbacks, the Steelers are the team I would look at. And maybe Sam just didn't want to play. Maybe Sam would rather have gone back to the West Coast where he's from California, go to Seattle. But that is a wild discount for a really good, talented quarterback with even more upside.
If you guys recall, though, after that Rams game on this show, we talked about he cost himself millions. Those last two games are an enormous hit. Enormous hit. Now, I didn't know. I knew that they would be a hit of some sort. I didn't know how much. And I think in the aftermath of us being like, whoa, that was really bad football, I think teams held that far more than the body of work that Sam showed through 16 games 17 and 18, I think hurt him so much, because the reality was in the Detroit game, he fell apart. Like, it was a wild regression. It was a scary regression. If you're a team that thinks that you can win games, that was an unwinnable performance. Now, the Rams game, the Rams were very prepared, played well, but you guys, I think those last two games knocked him off the perch of 40 plus, a contract of 40 plus to this. I really do.
More breaking news. We'll start with as it pertains to the Vikings. According to Dan Graziano, ESPN, the Colts are expected to sign free agent safety Cam Bynum once free agency officially opens on Wednesday, when you can actually sign a contract. So, yeah, the Theo Jackson re-signing for $6 million a year tipped off that maybe Cam Bynum was going to be pricing himself out of a purple jersey. So Cam Bynum to the Colts. And, hell, while we're at it, the quarterback dominoes are falling into place here. The Jets are signing Justin Fields to be their new starting quarterback. 2 years, $40 million. So he gets $20 million a year as probably the day one starter. But, he has not proven himself to be a guy that you would trust for a full season either. So that essentially leaves the Steelers.
Yep.
Who could either bring Russell Wilson back but the reports were that they'd rather have Fields. But Aaron Rodgers has been linked to the Steelers today.
Yep.
And then it would, I guess, leave the Titans, Giants, Browns to either draft a quarterback, or Kirk Cousins could be released at some point by the Falcons. So, but Cam Bynum officially gone from the Vikings.
The Browns have not filled that yet. So, because I still think if the Falcons don't let Cousins go, they're morons, but they might just be morons. The Browns are going to have to go get a bridge guy. So that's one too. The Titans, I can't tell, are they going to trade that pick? Are they going to trade that pick to the Giants? And the Giants pick third? And then are the Titans going to take Shedeur? Like, my question is, what does Tennessee plan to do here too? Because depending on that, I don't think that you're going to have a Darnold every year where a dude who wants to play goes, I'll sign. And then he signs and the first round pick gets hurt. And he actually was fortunate probably to play the entire season. So there are question marks there. Bynum to the Colts does not surprise me one bit.
It's 4 years, $60 million for Cam Bynum to the Colts. So $15 million a year
for him.
And right now you got Theo Jackson. It sounds like Harrison Smith is likely to come back. That decision has to be made by the end of this week contractually. And then the Vikings, like Jay Ward, they could bring in somebody else. Let's get to the other big news here for the Vikings before more comes in. Right after we signed off the first live stream, and welcome back, a few thousand of you hanging out with us here live on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Click that like button, the subscribe button if you haven't already. Maybe you're just discovering this, looking to get your fix of Vikings free agency news. The Vikings have agreed to a contract with cornerback Isaiah Rodgers, 2 years, $15 million, $8 million guaranteed. Interesting story here. So he is a 27-year-old former sixth-round pick out of UMass. So he was a small football college guy. and he's drafted by the Colts, plays a couple seasons, makes the team as a 6th-round pick, plays a couple seasons, does some kick returning too, average like 28 yards per return as a kick returner, and an outside cornerback. He was then suspended for the entire 2023 season for violating the NFL's gambling policy. He was placing bets, allegedly, for friends and family on the Colts to win. So he was like betting on his own team to win.
I love that one. He claimed it's because at the time they couldn't gamble from Florida online, but he could, and so he was just taking care of business for them.
So who knows what the truth really is, but he winds up getting, blacklisted from the league for a year. Comes back 1 year with the Eagles last year, and the Eagles have just a loaded secondary. But he plays in a part-time role, played 15 games for the Eagles last season. He played chunks of playoff games, played in all the playoff games. And he wound up with a 73 PFF grade overall, 82 grade in 2022, by the way. But this is the most interesting thing. He was the 6th highest graded cornerback in the entire league in man coverage last year. Now, the Eagles as a whole have really good man coverage cornerbacks. But that's something to note, that the Vikings probably love that Isaiah Rodgers can be out there on an island. Hey, we're going to send 3 extra rushers here because I'm Brian Flores. You need to cover someone on the back end. Quarterbacks have a career 85.5 passer rating when targeting him, which that's like Gardner Minshew's career passer rating. So Isaiah Rodgers, I don't know that it's a very discounted deal compared to the other top, like we're seeing the DJ Reeds and some of these guys sign big contracts. I think there's a chance that they could still also bring back Byron Murphy Jr. And you would then have, because like the Isaiah Rodgers contract isn't that much more than you were paying like Stephon Gilmore last year or Shaq Griffin. So could you see a world where Byron Murphy comes back for a lot of money, like $17 million a year, $20 million, Isaiah Rodgers, Mekhi Blackman, and you've got some like Dwight McLaughlin, some young guys in that room too. Maybe you draft somebody. I don't think this replaces Byron Murphy Jr. necessarily, is my take on this.
No. He's a good depth piece. And I think Stephon Gilmore's going to retire here. So I think he's done playing. I think that Shaq Griffin's probably not coming back now. And so, this gives you a depth piece. And it also, Phil, as you touched on briefly there, it also gives you a guy who can return kicks. And I know kick returning is not at a premium now, but keep in mind, one of the primary kick returners in 2024 was Ty Chandler, who I think is out the door.
Yeah.
And so, this is, if I was to describe this move, I think it is part of just building the cornerback room. And if he produces and is great or is really good, that's awesome. But I don't think that this impedes what you are going to do. I do think that it gets you younger. Because the realization was at the end of last year, when you look at Shaq Griffin and Gilmore, right? That room was fairly at least skewed towards being long in the tooth. So I think this gives you more depth. I think it gives you a younger piece. And clearly whatever he told them about the gambling thing passed the smell test, because the Vikings, as we've discussed before, the Vikings are very up on stuff like that. Like they're not going to put what they deem to be a rotten apple in their room. So I like this move, but I just think it's a depth move with potential upside.
Yep. By the way, Nick Mullins to the Jaguars too, while we're clearing up breaking news.
And
Johnny Munt's gone.
Oh no.
Johnny Munt to the Jaguars.
Jaguars. Oh.
I've lost my first true tight end love.
Wow.
You remember Judd's Camp Notes? I think he was an original Judd's Camp Notes guy.
I would say Theo Jackson and Johnny Munt are a couple of OG Judd's Camp Note guys.
I went out because I was out at the OTAs after Munt had signed here, and I immediately said, this guy knows what Kevin O'Connell runs. He is more up to date on this. He's making plays. And I think that was like one of the first, if not the first, Judd's Camp Notes guy where I immediately identified the traits that I knew KO would love.
Yeah. Yep. I'm excited for Judd's Camp Notes this summer. It's going to be, we're going to have to identify a couple of, they identify themselves.
Exactly. I can't tell you who it's going to be. I just know it when I see it.
And then then you just observe and relay the information to
Exactly
our great
right.
audience.
Exactly right.
We can also update here too. I don't know that the meeting has happened yet necessarily, but as Doogie reported earlier today, Jonathan Allen, premier defensive interior pass rusher, visiting the Vikings today. And at least as of a couple hours ago, the Vikings are in on Will Fries, one of the premier guards on the offensive side. But the guard market has not quite picked up steam. The center market has. Coleman Shelton looks like he's going back to the Rams. So there's only, on the PFF top 100 list, the only other center on here is Colts Ryan Kelly. And wasn't there some steam that he might retire?
Mm-hmm.
So like Bradbury almost certainly coming back. I will at some point, I'll connect the spreadsheet of glory here so we can see who's available and who's not. But yeah, Sam Darnold, if you're just joining us, Sam Darnold to the Seahawks on a 3-year, $100 million deal. And then Isaiah Rodgers is the first. So the Vikings have made one, not signing, but one agreement, Isaiah Rodgers to this point. Mm-hmm. And they've got some irons in the fire with defensive tackle and with guard. Another note to clean up here. So Milton Williams, the premier 26-year-old defensive tackle from Philadelphia, initially reportedly agreed to terms with the Panthers. But then right after we signed off, there was kind of a hold the phone moment. And a couple reporters came out and said, no, it's not a done deal at all yet. In fact, he's still talking with some teams, including the Vikings. But it wound up that the Patriots swooped in with their absolute war chest of cap space, over $100 million in cap space. And they blew away the market. Milton Williams signed. He was projected to be like a $20, maybe $22 million a year guy. $26 million a year with the Patriots. That's An agent saying, all right, my client's got a couple warmer weather destinations or good teams that want him. So your tax is going to be an extra $5 million on top of what the other teams are offering. 3, 2, 1. Do we have a deal? So Milton Williams is off the board.
And perhaps Milton said, hold on a second. I just agreed to a deal with the Panthers. Let me look through the Panthers depth chart. And more importantly, who runs them? Oh, David Tepper. I think I'm going to opt out of that deal. Now the Patriots,
although the Panthers have they got some mojo going. They played a lot better in the second half of the year.
But I still think that I think the very top of their front office has some real questions still.
I don't trust the same can be said for the Patriots though.
Well, that's probably true. But if you throw that much at me, like that's the thing is you're right. Like that amount, if the Vikings had done that, if they had gotten him at that price point, what's your thought process?
I would have been it's an overpay.
Yep.
It's an overpay.
Yep. I agree.
Not to mention he's been a rotational guy. If you're going to pay $26 million a year, I need you to be an every single down guy. Can you play 1,000 snaps? And the answer to this, he hasn't been asked to, but I kind of love if it shapes up this way, go get a 30-year-old established like Jonathan Allen. You know what you're getting in him for a lot less money, almost certainly.
Yes.
Go draft a defensive tackle. In fact, of the 10 highest paid defensive tackles in the league last year, 7 of them were first-round picks drafted before the 20th pick. And the Vikings are actually outside of that because they picked 24th. So if 70-80% of the best defensive tackles, the interior pass rush guys, you got to find them in the first round. And I'm a little nervous about that for Milton Williams. He's very good, but is he an every snap guy for $26 million? You don't know, and you have to pay him before you find out.
For $26 million, I need you to be coming out of your first contract and to have made at least like a couple all-pro teams.
Yeah, just two. I'm going to pop the spreadsheet of glory up here on the screen. And you'll see here, so on the left are the internal free agents. Everyone who's a free agent that hasn't re-signed is already inked in red. But we can start putting in here like Cam Bynum, for instance. I should just make a note here. Cam Bynum to the Colts. I think I can use that one. People are asking how much cap space do the Vikings have right now? We'll go through that in a second.
Yep.
Because we've got the spreadsheet of glory to tell us. It's great. But Johnny Munt to the Jags. RIP to the best number 3 tight end in the NFL. And then I think those are the only ones. Well, Sam Darnold to the Seahawks.
Yep.
Plug him in there.
Yep.
Oops. So turning him green there.
Nick
So
Mullins.
we'll leave that one. And then Nick Mullins, to the
Jaguars.
Jags, right?
Yep. They're stealing all of our backups.
Grant
Oh.
Udinsky taking them all.
Grant, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Actually, I'm just gonna leave these blank because it's turning them green, and I need to figure that out. We don't want them to be green because they're not Vikings, But the answer to the question of how much cap space do the Vikings have left, let's just go through the weeds here for a second. We know that Aaron Jones' 2025 cap hit is $4.8 million. We're estimating Theo Jackson's is about $5 million. The official terms have not come in with all the details yet. Ryan Wright re-signed the punter for $1.75 million. And then Isaiah Rodgers, I'm estimating like a $6 million cap hit for the new cornerback. So if you add those in and you account for the $4 million cap hit here for their first round pick, that's a hold.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're looking at $41.5-ish million in cap space. But that doesn't count restructures. So what you could do here, and we've talked about these in all of our blueprints, you could do a simple restructure of Brian O'Neill. And that would save you $8.5 million to this year's cap. That gets you closer to $50 million. There's a couple other strings you could pull with like Josh Metellus, Josh Oliver contract extensions. You could cut Ed Ingram and save $3.5 million. So the Vikings are sitting here officially with about $41.5 million in cap space. Easily could get another $10 million plus by just pulling some levers.
Mm-hmm.
But that's plenty of money just to plug in here. Let's say you bring Cam Bynum back for $17, $18 million a year, and we call it a $14 million cap hit on the first year. We're just estimating here. That still leaves you enough money to go out and get, let's say the Will Fries contract is $14 million a year per PFF. And that's a $10 million cap hit because it's a 4-year deal on the first year. You're still sitting at $17 million.
Yeah.
And then you go get who's our defensive lineman friend? Jonathan Allen for, I'm estimating his base was like $15 million last year. Let's call it a 2-year, I don't know, 2-year 30, 2-year 28. It's not going to be $20 million a year.
Mm-mm.
Maybe his cap hits $12 million.
Yep.
You still, and that's before tapping these other contracts. So you have plenty of money right now to go out and get 3 high-end players in free agency at cornerback, defensive line, and offensive guard, Judd.
Yeah. And I think on Murphy and on Fries, if you get them, I think that the cap hits are going to be they're going to be higher than the projection because on Fries, like the Giants are clearly trying to get him as well, but you still can do it. And I think at the end of the day today, if you walk away, as we discussed, with a guard, a cornerback, and a defensive tackle with the plan to draft one, I think you're going to be pretty pleased. And I know they haven't made like substantial moves yet, and I know it's concerning because why are they not doing something? I think there's a difference between a strategic approach to today and falling asleep. And you can't claim they fell asleep until hours from now. The day is done. The votes are in. But if they are in negotiations with Fries, Murphy, who I think that they are, and then if they can sign a veteran defensive tackle, I think you're in pretty good shape there.
Josh Metellus just posted a heartbreak emoji.
Oh, he's
For
not.
his guy Cam Bynum.
Friend's gone. His best buddy.
Is he going to be? Is he going to be a malcontent? Is he demanding out?
You know what? He's going to be a malcontent until the start of training camp when he benefits financially from Bynum's departure. Because I can guarantee you he's going to get a new contract.
Yeah.
So he'll feel real good when he reports to training camp. My guess is with probably a spanking new 3-year contract.
Can we do? We'll keep an eye on breaking news. There is an Aaron Rodgers development that we can get to, just not really pertaining to the Vikings at all that ship has sailed. There's zero connection between Aaron Rodgers and Vikings today. All of that was leverage, I'm sure, from his camp a couple days ago.
Yep.
But we can update you guys because we're kind of bouncing around the NFL here too. But also, I'd love to just do a quick positional audit of, okay, now that you know Cam Bynum's gone over here and Theo Jackson's in and a couple other positions. But a reminder that a few hours ago, tickets to the 4th annual Purple Daily Draft Party presented by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning went on sale. I can tell you that, and you guys are amazing, the VIP tickets in particular are going very fast. So if you're kind of on the fence and you're not 100% sure, you just scorenorth.com/draft and you can check out all the details. But general admission, $10. VIP tickets are $125, and they include a meet and greet beforehand with us, premium balcony seating, 2 drink vouchers, food voucher, Purple Daily snapback hat. The general admission tickets, you will get a flag for general admission, one of Judd's specialty flags that he has hand woven himself, by the way.
He's waving the big flag that night.
Yeah,
we got the big flag in storage right now.
But tickets are on sale, and I've seen it as several hundred of them have gone off the shelves already in the first few hours. So thank you guys. We have no idea what they're going to do in the draft. We know that they're not drafting a quarterback, obviously, but it should still be an incredible fun night, a celebration of Vikings fans and Purple Daily. scorenorth.com/draft to check out those tickets, general admission and VIP. On the Aaron Rodgers front, this is from Pro Football Talk. It appears that he is deciding between the Steelers or the Giants right now. If you're Aaron Rodgers, would you rather play for the Steelers? I think the Steelers are a no-brainer right there.
The Steelers. I think the Steelers offensively have an infrastructure that if I'm a quarterback, I love. I absolutely love. My guess is that the Steelers were leaked as a Darnold destination in the last couple of days by people that were trying to drive the price in Seattle. Because if you're Sam Darnold and it was a remotely close, like the Seahawks are here and the Steelers financially are just below them a bit, I'm hightailing it to Pittsburgh, man. And the Giants, so you're going to go back. Now, Aaron Rodgers is such a damn contrarian that he might go there. But the reality is, when you look at those two situations, I don't think it's even close. Offensively?
Yeah.
Give me Pittsburgh.
Yep. Pittsburgh, I still don't get why Pittsburgh wasn't more active in the discussions for Sam Darnold, because it just seemed like a perfect spot. But and then the Bears, yeah, this is another one too from the Bears.
Bears are getting better, gentlemen.
It's Dia Odenabo, right, from the Colts. The Bears say he's an edge rusher, 3 years, $48 million, $32 million guaranteed. So the Bears continue to splash around with all the cap space they have. There's also, I don't know how credible this is, but via Vikings fan page citing a reporter from Nesson out on the East Coast, Zach Gatsby. He's a writer for Nesson. And apparently he's reporting that the Vikings are very much in on Jevon Holland, the safety from Miami, who's kind of a Swiss Army knife, really high-end secondary player that Brian Flores drafted when he was the head coach there back 4 years ago.
You know what's weird? I'm buying this. Now, and keep in mind, a year ago at this time, on this very day, the Vikings were very much in on Christian Wilkins, who went to the Raiders, who was a Flores guy as well, who was a dominant player. I'm buying this, and I do think it's interesting that Jevon Holland has not made a decision yet. So clearly that indicates that there are some players in the poker game. The Vikings also have the cap space, and like they've done really almost nothing yet. So if you go get Holland, let's play this out. If it happens, you're probably not getting a top corner then. Like I don't think you're going to spend huge. I wonder if the Rodgers signing indicates that they are very much in on Holland, who, by the way, can sort of play the Metellus role, right? So does Metellus then play more slot? Like this opens up in positionless football. This opens up some very interesting discussions that go well beyond just the traditional corners and safety discussions that we ordinarily have.
So on that note, right now, you're sitting there, you're Kwesi and company. You definitely need one or two more bodies in that secondary, like whether it's Byron Murphy back or Jevon Holland. But your cornerback room right now, because the starters from last year, all free agents. So your cornerback room right now is Isaiah Rodgers, who's been a part-time player, Philadelphia, Indianapolis, with some upside, 27 years old. Mekhi Blackman. And then it's like Dwight McLaughlin, Najee Thompson, Nashawn Wright, Ambry Thomas. Now you're getting into like practice squad guys. So you need at least one more credible cornerback, a starting caliber cornerback. And then your safety room right now is Josh Metellus, Harrison Smith until we hear otherwise, Theo Jackson, Jay Ward. So I look at that and say, well, if I've got a $15 to $20 million average annual value chunk of money in my pocket, I don't think it's for Jevon Holland, who's more of a safety who can play some slot.
Right.
I think it has to be for someone who can play cornerback, outside cornerback, maybe mix into the slot. Sure. And I don't know that you would spend on both those things at this point. I think you'd spend a chunk on one and then go spend the rest in your trenches, right?
Agreed. Yes. So if they're truly talking to Jevon and his reps and are prepared to pay the potential price there, does that mean that they know or think that Harrison Smith is going to retire? And so it would be Jevon Holland, Theo Jackson, Josh Metellus. And are they prepared? Like the one thing with Flores, and I know he's got guys that he really likes and guys who are incredibly effective playing in his system. But I think the one thing is he does things a little bit differently. And that's where my question about the corners comes in. Because on the surface, I agree completely with your point, which is, boy, that seems odd to pay that, especially for a traditional safety of some sort. So like, what's the thinking here? Because I would have to believe that if Jevon Holland signs here, Harrison Smith's probably not coming back.
Yeah. And we don't know yet. There's been some indications. I know our guy Doogie reported last week that it's very much leaning toward Harrison Smith is back. So, but if he's back, it's only for a year. And if you have a chance at someone who's 26 years old, more of a long-term solution.
Yep. And
maybe you scale back his role a little bit more. So a couple other things. Diana Rossini is reporting that Daniel Jones is kind of a pivot point right now, that the league is waiting to see, okay, does he fill that Viking spot that some seem to still think might be open for an actual starter? Does he go to the Colts? Because the Colts are kind of in the mix for a couple different options to pair with Anthony Richardson. And then the Broncos are finalizing an agreement with former 49ers All-Pro safety Talanoa Hufanga, according to Jordan Schultz, who might confront you at a Starbucks if you're not careful.
He's right a lot. I give him credit for that.
So those are kind of the latest. So, yeah, man, that's what we got here. Sam Darnold to the Seahawks. Isaiah Rodgers is the only player the Vikings have agreed to terms with. 2 years, $15 million. The more I think about that signing, that's a really interesting, savvy move, especially if you bring back a Byron Murphy and now you got younger, there's some depth. He's a guy that has graded out really well in man coverage. That's a sneaky one. Very sneaky.
And this roster needed to get younger. Like that's the thing is it was not your goal at this time a year ago to say, I hope we go into the 2024 campaign as one of the oldest teams, right? Now, the team was good. It was a lot of fun to watch, lots of success. But the reality is, if you're Kwesi, if you're the front office, I think one of your missions is to open training camp with an eye towards youth. Now, that can be experience, but, Stephon Gilmore was brought in out of necessity. But Shaq Griffin was signed, I believe, in March of 2024. And a guy like Shaq, it's great. He's a veteran guy. I would prefer, though, to take a shot on a younger guy who might start eventually. He might not start now. Special teams, though. So I think what we're going to see is very much a strategy. And it's not going to be necessarily all names that we recognize, but it's going to be a strategy. Look at the ages and experience. I think they're going to try to get that down.
Yep. It's... Yeah, that's what you do. You swap out a 34, and if they can swap out Stephon Gilmore, 34 going to be 35 for a 27-year-old with upside, that's a savvy move. Dex, you got something?
Jordan Palmer, Chargers wide receiver, has signed a 3-year deal worth $36 million, 18 guaranteed. He's going to the Bills. He's going to go play with Josh Allen in Buffalo.
It's a nice little weapon for Josh Allen. So let's see here. Let me give you guys a list of, these are currently the best. I'm going to pop this back up here, the spreadsheet of glory. The best remaining free agents that the Vikings could have their eye on. The guard market has not budged. So you'll see here on the screen, I can highlight some of these guys. Like Will Fries, definitely the Vikings have shown interest in behind the scenes, according to Doogie and a couple other reports. Patrick McCarry, left guard last year with the Ravens, both still very much available. Levi Onwuzurike, who pressured the Vikings 9 times in that last meeting in the regular season, interior pass rusher. Jevon Hargrave has been linked in terms of someone the Vikings may have interest in. Jonathan Allen is visiting. And then if they do happen to lose out on Byron Murphy Jr., cornerback options, well, DJ Reed's off the board, Carlton Davis, Paulson Adebo off the board, but Charvarius Ward, Rasul Douglas, a couple guys in their late 20s, and then Asante Samuel Jr., age 25. So there's, I'm sure the Vikings have all these irons in the fire. But something else that we have not talked about this at all yet today. The number 3 wide receiver situation. I don't think Cooper Kupp is like a number 1 priority right now at 2:00 in the afternoon when you're trying to fix your trenches. Like, go get a guard, go get Jonathan Allen.
Yep.
But I'm wondering the way this is all kind of playing out. Unless a team thinks that Cooper Kupp can be a number 1 or like a 1B, because he'd be a clear number 3 receiver here. Do you think Cooper Kupp is at all a possibility, or would he only be a possibility if the Vikings decide to trade Jordan Addison in the next couple months?
That's a good question. Well, one, I think he'd be a possibility because of his obviously going back to having O'Connell as his OC previously with the Rams. I think he'd be a possibility. I think the issue is this: would a team like Seattle swoop in and pay him as well? Because there he'd probably be the secondary guy, and that's he'd stay out west. Then it's attractive to me. That's something though that's probably a week away or 4 days away. The other one, though, that I think is a real possibility that you pointed to last week, Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett, very much to me, is at a point in his life and career where I could see him going to a successful team, really good play caller, really solid offensive scheme. You play with Jefferson, so you basically have favorable coverage matchups a lot. Just a total guess. It feels to me like Tyler Lockett's probably more of a fit in that role right now than Cooper Kupp, based on the philosophy the player would have in signing with his new team.
Yeah, and cheaper. I think Kupp's probably gonna make more money. Josh Sweat is the latest big signing here. Boy, these Eagles players are getting paid.
What happens, man?
Super Bowl run.
What happens when you get the Lombardi?
Josh Sweat to the Cardinals, edge rusher. 4 years, $76.4 million, $41 million guaranteed.
We should talk about this, okay? Pull up the spreadsheet of glory if it's got the current contracts of Vikings players on it. And let's talk about what this team did this time of year last year when it comes to your edge pressure. And look at those glorious salaries. Look at Van Ginkel, Bernard, Dallas Turner on a rookie contract. Look at what the price tag for guys that can pressure quarterbacks. Look at those price tags right now, and then combine Van Ginkel, Grenard. This is some genius contract play by the Minnesota Vikings.
So think about, like you said, these numbers we're seeing. Josh Sweat, almost $20 million a year. Milton Williams plays on the interior, but that's $26 million a year. And Jonathan Grenard, who was top 5, top 10 in a lot of edge rusher categories, 84 pressures last year.
Yep.
$22 million for a cap hit, average annual value of somewhere in that range. And Van Ginkel's cap hit is only $12 million. It's crazy. And by the way, if Dallas Turner pans out, if he makes the second year leap, you're paying him nothing, $3.5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've really done a good job cleaning this up, man. Like, your highest cap hits going into next year are Brian O'Neill, and you might actually fix that.
Down. Yeah.
Jonathan Grenard at $22 million, TJ Hawkinson at 16.6, and then Jefferson at 15. Next year, it starts to really balloon with his new contract.
Right.
Darisaw at $10 million, his will start to balloon. So you'll have to account for that. And then it's like, I mean, and Darisaw is under 10. You only have 5 guys. It's very well spread out, up and down.
Yes.
And if you wind up, if Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy hit, and you have a quarterback and an edge rusher playing at a high level at basically no money, making like 1 to 2% of the salary cap, those are cheat codes from a roster building standpoint.
Yes. And if you're on the ledge right now, how are they not doing more? And I'm not trying to defend them here, but if you're on the, what are they doing? Did they all fall asleep? The Bears are doing this and that. And look, the Bears appear to be improving. Kudos to them. But if you are in that camp right now, remember, a year ago, Grenard agreed here. And we're all like, oh, that's nice. And we had to look him up. Van Ginkel, who I think was more well-known, but was coming off a Liz Frank foot. And we all said, including me, let's wait and see there, right? So like there is this whole thing about, oh, we just got to make a splash and sign big names, which is a ton of fun. I love that. But the reality is that's not necessarily the smartest thing. And sometimes if you have, and I think the Vikings do, if you have a good pro personnel department, you got to find if they're not bargains, you got to find the smart signings. And I think and I think their 2024, their work in March of 2024, I think goes a long way towards giving them some equity today because they did that.
100%. 100%. They've whiffed on some of the buy low. They've tried to get cute with some of these. Like they traded for Jalen Reagor one time, and they've done a good job finding some. I mean, Van Ginkel they saw something for Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel's certainly not making nothing. He's making, 8 figures a year. But his impact on this team, in this system, in this scheme, far surpasses what they're paying him. And I wonder if that's going to be the case with the cornerback they signed, Isaiah Rodgers, where, okay, yeah, if we see a vision for that guy to maybe play a lot more snaps, and he could wind up being a pretty high-end, like well above average starting caliber cornerback for $7.5 or $8 million a year with a cap that's pushing $300 million. So, yep, Kwesi has been awesome in free agency. The draft stuff, we got to let it play out if he nails Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy, but he's been awesome in free agency. Do you guys have any other we're going to get Thor in here at some point
here shortly.
In the next 5 or 10 to officially kick off the JJ McCarthy era. But do you have any other thoughts on just like where things stand right now with the one move they've made and then the different reports that are floating out there?
I'd like to see a guard. I would like to see a corner. The Jevon Holland thing, which again, I'm not dismissing, intrigues me though, because if they are doing that, that is at the behest of Flores. Like there's no question. They're not trying to get like, hey, Brian, guess what we're doing? We're talking to a safety. And Brian Flores gets a lot of credit because in my opinion, he had a huge amount to do with the defensive free agents they brought in last year. And to a man, for the most part, they all worked out. So I think if they get Holland, I think it needs to be framed as he's got some ideas that we're not seeing, which would not be rare. I also think as far as the drafts go, the more I think about this in the coming season, if McCarthy starts and plays well, which is very possible, and Dallas Turner matures and plays more and plays well. And I'm not even trying to cut Kwesi a break here. Just as far as the Vikings drafts, how much differently do we start to view that? And 2022 is what it is. It's a disaster. Not trying to explain that away. But if those two things happen and those 2 first-round picks start to contribute heavily, how much different do we start to see their drafting as opposed to this discussion right here, right now?
Yeah, quite a bit different, because those are two. That's a potential 10-year franchise quarterback, and it's the most important position on defense, edge rusher. So I think we'll increasingly be less disappointed and angry as a mob about the Lewis Cine pick. The more distance gets created and the more success the Vikings and Kwesi stack in those drafts. I'll throw this out real quick.
Reckless speculation
From Mike Silver. Mike Silver, longtime NFL reporter, insider. He's been at NFL Network, Yahoo, Sports Illustrated. And he says, here's the landscape of the quarterback situation right now. Daniel Jones, either Colts or Vikings. Aaron Rodgers, Steelers or Giants or Vikings. He put a question mark after Vikings.
I'm no.
And then it says everyone else is waiting on those decisions before they can proceed forward.
Let's talk about this for a second. You are telling me that Kevin O'Connell, who runs a very, he doesn't run a tight ship, but he's very particular. You are telling me that unless the Vikings know that JJ McCarthy, his leg basically is in an operating room right now, he's going to bring in Aaron Rodgers to be JJ McCarthy's backup?
No, it'd be to be a starter.
Bring him in to start, but it makes no sense unless you know something about McCarthy. This makes at the very least, it would be a training camp competition. That's how they try and sell it. It makes zero sense.
Okay,
Daniel Jones makes sense. It makes zero sense.
Yeah, just to clarify, I don't think there's any world in which Rodgers signs with the Vikings to be JJ McCarthy's backup. And I am fully on board with the JJ McCarthy era, but these are credible reports that supposedly, I think there's a lot of national stuff that's just been floated as leverage. I think any sort of Vikings Rodgers link is mostly rooted in leverage. It's just
100%.
But just to entertain a premise here, if Aaron Rodgers was the starting quarterback for the Vikings, how good would they be?
It depends on who you get.
If you say it this way. How about this? If you ran Aaron Rodgers instead of Sam Darnold last year, are the Vikings a 14-win team?
No, I think last year's Sam Darnold was better than.
I agree.
Aaron Rodgers can still he's got some games still, but I don't think he was making the plays that Darnold was making consistently.
Agreed. So I guess that's my way of saying if he were the starter then in 2025, like 8-win team.
Judd,
9 wins, but my guess is he breaks down at some point. He's an old man.
I think they'd be way better than 8 or 9 wins with Aaron Rodgers. I think they're going to be better than 8 or 9 wins with McCarthy. I think there's a chance though that McCarthy has a weird month as a first-year starter, and it's just these are. Bo Nix had some bad stretches, even though he put up ridiculous numbers. Jordan Love, after sitting for 3 years, had a bad 2 months to start his career 2 years ago.
Kevin O'Connell has worked so hard to build, to be trite. He's worked very hard to be cliched, a culture, right? Like they've built a really good culture. I can't tell you how strong that room is. It is incredibly strong, and it's been honed and it's been crafted because it was really crappy before him. And he's going to drop that grenade in. If we're talking about, if the question is, would you put Aaron Rodgers on your Vikings fantasy football team? And he's going to generate you stats, but he's not a living and breathing human. So you don't have to worry about him as a human. I'd be like, okay, very possibly. Yes. But you're going to drop that guy in. And at the first sign of trouble, like when's the last time he did not throw someone under the bus? He does it continually. The other thing, too, is, in the case of Favre and Childress, Brett would go against Brad because Brett thought, and he was right, he knew better. So they'd call these hanky plays and Brett would change him and Brad would get mad. But Aaron Rodgers, if he pulls that stunt with O'Connell, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't trust him more.
Well, he pulled it with LaFleur.
Exactly. But that's my point is I don't trust him not to spoil. I don't trust him not to be a rotten egg on a number of levels. And in Pittsburgh, it would also be dicey, but he is who he is, and he ain't changing now. The guy who goes on McAfee that's him. He's just sort of a jackass now.
Yeah, he's a narcissist. He's a raging narcissist. I also, again, I'm not in on it, but I do think they would win more games than you guys. All right, this is bad news for the Vikings unless they have a signing coming down the pipeline here. But the Jaguars have reached an agreement, according to Adam Schefter, with Patrick McCarry, former Ravens offensive lineman. He was their starting left guard last year. We've talked a lot about him on the Blueprint episodes. But there were some rumblings about the Vikings being interested in Patrick McCarry. I don't have the contract terms in front of me here yet. But that's a guy that's 27 years old. He can play everywhere on the offensive line, and he, on paper, seemed to be a great fit for the Vikings, but you can take him off the board now. Patrick McCarry to the Jaguars.
Is this Fries or bust?
Well, here's the names. Here are the best guards remaining. Will Fries, 26-year-old Will Fries, 27-year-old Tevin Jenkins, who has come nowhere near playing a full healthy season.
Mm-hmm.
You got the old veterans in Brandon Scherf and Kevin Zeitler, who are both awesome and don't give up pressures, but they're old, 33 and 35.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aaron Banks, 27-year-old left guard, San Francisco. There's a couple other guys here, like these guys are both, I think, second-round picks. Liam Eichenberg from Miami, but he's a notch or two below in terms of like PFF grade, projected salary, all those things. And then Will Hernandez, the 29-year-old veteran, still on here. But Mekhi Becton, he's still out there as a free agent. But based on some of the things that have been out there with like social media comments, likes, and things, he does not feel fondly about the Vikings' assistant offensive line coach that he was with in New York a couple years ago. Right. So it may, at this point, in terms of high-end guards that make sense, I think it's either Will Fries on a multi-year deal, or you go to the veteran bin of Brandon Scherf, Kevin Zeitler. That's kind of where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, let's bring him in here to celebrate and commemorate officially day one of the JJ McCarthy era. Thor Nystrom from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life.
Judd, you got that flag within arm's length?
No, unfortunately, I'm not at home. So,
all right. Well, I got one right here, baby.
Oh, no, even better.
Right here. It's JJ McCarthy time, folks. It's JJ McCarthy time. Vikings are going for it. The Vikings are going for it. The JJ McCarthy era has begun.
Yeah, Sam Darnold to the Seahawks. We want to get your reaction there first. So it winds up being basically the exact Baker Mayfield contract, but minus the inflation, because that contract was signed, 2 years ago, or whatever it was? So Darnold winds up getting about half average annual value of what Dak Prescott gets at the top of the market. So on one hand, hey, if you're the Vikings, you go spend that $30 million a year to make your team better for JJ McCarthy. It's the right decision to not do that contract. On the other hand, I think the Seahawks are getting a steal for $33 million a year, the version of Sam Darnold that we saw last year, the warts and everything. Like that dude, former top 5 pick that threw 35 touchdowns and 4,000 plus yards, and you get him for half of what Dak Prescott makes. So I think it's actually good for everyone. It's a good thing for Sam. It's a good thing for the Seahawks. And now the Vikings can move forward with JJ McCarthy and maybe Daniel Jones as his backup.
Yeah, it speaks, I think, to the pessimism in the market about Sam that we were, talking about coming out of the combine. I couldn't believe what I heard there about the market is not what people think. And if the trade for Geno Smith hadn't happened, where would the market have been? That's the Vikings. They made a obligatory 1 year, $25 million contract offer to Sam Darnold. They fully expected hhim to turn it down. But then there wasn't any teams that were getting aggressive for him initially. And obviously the Kubiak connection with Seattle and then him being out there and being available. That was the best the market would bear for Sam Darnold. And to be available at that price, what was going on in the Seattle in their building. It was, well, Geno, he wants 40 and change, right? We could trade him. We could get a 3rd round pick. We could sign Sam for $10 million less per year. And we don't have to go long term. So if it doesn't work out after the first 2 years, we have sort of an exit door with it. So I totally get what they were doing. And I hope for the best for Sam. Seattle is going to have to greatly improve their offensive line. I think people are fixating maybe a little bit too much on the receivers there. Obviously they're going to have to do something there, but if Seattle does not fix their offensive line, Sam Darnold won't even have a chance to be successful. We know what discombobulates that guy. He's not the worst quarterback in the world, certainly. And as I've stated, I think he is one of the best 32 quarterbacks walking planet Earth. He's not as good as JJ McCarthy, and he's getting paid way more than him. So, this is the correct decision for the Vikings, but Seattle is going to need to bolster that offensive line. The one other thing I wanted to say from the Vikings perspective, and this, I'm not even going to say any of my thoughts about JJ McCarthy, which you guys in the audience know well. Think about the statement that the Vikings are making to you and the football world by not going to even $32 or $33 million on a 2 to 3 year contract for Sam Darnold. Think about the statement that Kevin O'Connell, the most respected quarterback guru in the NFL, the statement he is making to you about JJ McCarthy. Kevin O'Connell is calling his shot here on this kid. He is laying his entire reputation on the line for JJ McCarthy. And Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and the folks that work under him, they are now betting their careers on JJ McCarthy. You think I'm confident in JJ McCarthy? I'm not betting my career on him. I might be betting some people's respect, but I'm not betting my career. Everyone in that building is now betting their career on JJ McCarthy, and understand the statement that is.
But this was always, this is what's frustrated me. This was always the plan. Yeah. Like when they drafted him, again, you do not draft a guy in the top 10 for the first time in franchise history at that position to be like, well, now we saw Darnold play, so we're not so sure. Like, I know we've seen that. I know we have seen quarterback indecision here. I know we've seen some bad choices made. I know we've seen some bad choices that turn into good choices that turn into pumpkins. But the reality is this: Kevin O'Connell led this charge. Everyone else is along for the freaking ride. Like he made that clear. He's like, I'm known as the quarterback
killer. Yeah.
Because guys were saying, let's draft this guy and that guy. And he said no continually. And what frustrated me and what I'm just glad that's done now is all of a sudden, because JJ McCarthy suffered an injury that, by the way, is incredibly common in football players, athletes, and a guy walking down the street today will step wrong and tear his meniscus. We're acting like he took a bullet. He did not take a bullet. He's going to be fine. And the Vikings want to take this opportunity to give him his chance, which he deserves, which is why I never got you got to bring Darnold back, or now you got to go get another, Aaron Rodgers, just go get him. For what? For what, Thor? This was always about McCarthy. Like what you talked about a year ago, once it was done, it could have been Drake May, it could have been JJ, it could have been whomever. This is where they wanted to put their money and their time and development. And somehow, I don't know, in this town, we got off script, and it's driven me crazy. And now I think it's done.
Yeah, well, folks outside of this room, maybe, and the national folks and stuff like that. The Rodgers stuff was ridiculous. The Vikings were never interested in him, and they made the one respectful contract offer to Sam that they knew that he wasn't going to accept. This was a predetermined outcome. We said it over and over and over again. And to your point, that whoever the quarterback was that they ended up taking, if you're taking him in the top 10, that's what it was. Kwesi, and he is. This was the crazy thing to me about especially the local folks we saw these wild reports from them vis-a-vis this. all you had to do is listen to the comments that Kwesi and O'Connell made. O'Connell went out of it. Remember the thing with the Detroit beat writer where he took the comment that O'Connell said at the award show about Justin Jefferson and turned that into Sam Darnold? So he's like, oh, Kevin O'Connell just said, we're going to, we're building a Super Bowl, whatever it was, that we're going to win the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold or whatever it was. And O'Connell made a point to correct that night of, no, I wasn't talking about Sam. You don't do that if you're hoping to bring him back or you think that you're going to bring him back. Sam was already out the door, and so the predetermined outcome has played out exactly like we said. And man, the future is bright.
Whoa.
Okay. There's a lot going on here.
Whoa. We got the breaking news song.
I don't know. Well, yeah, it's about the 50th time we've hit it in the last 3 hours here. We're probably overusing the breaking news sounder. I'm curious because there's 3 things on my list. Dex, start with whatever made you go, whoa, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so Aaron Banks, the top guard, is off the market. He's going to the Packers, but he got a huge payday, 4 years, $77 million for Aaron Banks. McCarry, on the other hand, a better, more, and like this is what I probably would have done. Let's see here. I just had it.
It's like 12 or 13 million a year for McCarry.
It was like 37 it was a much more obtainable deal, but Banks getting a huge payday from the Green Bay Packers, 4 years, $77 million.
So 2 of the 27-year-old guards off the board, which leaves in terms of remaining guards the Vikings could sign Will Fries, Tevin Jenkins, Mekhi Becton, maybe, Brandon Scherf in the elderly bin, and Kevin Zeitler, and then there's some other just guys that aren't on that level. Also worth noting here, the Chicago Bears in their quest to just spend all of the money today. So they bring in recently cut Falcons defensive tackle Grady Jackson on a multi-year contract. Grady Jarrett. He comes in, I think it's a 3-year deal, and not quite the player that he was like 4 or 5 years ago. But the Bears are trying to fix their trenches as well. They've overhauled 60% of their offensive line, and so the Bears are going to be they're trying to make a push with a new head coach and a fan base. They're trying to get fans to maybe pay for a stadium too at some point. So they got a lot going on. Back to you said something like 10 minutes ago, Thor, that we should drill down on even more here. Like the way you phrased it was Kwesi and KOC are betting their careers on JJ McCarthy. And now that we've seen the contract that Sam Darnold agreed to, it is the NFL tends to be, and even fans can be this way, really risk averse in that it bothers me when coaches coach to avoid being criticized and when front offices make moves that are like a little more play it safe type moves. And in this case, if I were to offer you 2 different doors, door number 1 is a former top 5 pick. It took him a while, but he had a breakout season and he threw 35 touchdowns and he went gangbusters in your system, in your house. You know this guy. You love him. They carried him on their shoulders at the end of December after a big win, right? And you don't have to pay $60 million. You don't have to pay $50. Guess what? This is crazy, but because he had a couple bad games at the end, you can literally get one of the 15 best quarterbacks, which I think that might be a debate, but I think Sam Darnold is one of the 15 best quarterbacks in the world right now. Like, I would take him above 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I would take him above probably Geno Smith even. You could have that for $32, $33 million a year. Or you can go door number 2, who you've never seen play in a regular season game before. A lot of front offices, Rick Spielman included, by the way, was on the record saying he would have signed $40+ million a year for Sam Darnold and then either stash JJ McCarthy, or I think a lot of front offices take the $32 million a year contract because it's a huge discount. You can still build a team around that. And then you trade JJ for like a first-round pick. And the Vikings the Vikings are taking the risky quote-unquote route here by doing what they're doing. I would do it too. But in a risk-averse league, a lot of teams would probably blink when the contract terms were what they were for Sam Darnold.
Where was Rick's $40 million a year offer to Sam when he could make it as a part of an NFL front office that had a quarterback need? That just signed Mr. Justin Fields 2 years, $40 million. you could have gotten. Yeah, like Rick Spielman, shut up. We've heard enough from you, my guy. Thanks for not working here anymore. The surest way to know that you're correct in the NFL is to do the thing that Rick Spielman, the opposite of what Rick Spielman is advocating for. But yeah, I mean, as far as the same thing, if you're in Seattle shoes, sure. To me, that is a risk because I tend to think that there's some mirage going on there. He's certainly not what he showed the first Sam. I'm talking about prior to the last two games. He's not a total production of it. Again, I think he's one of the top 32 quarterbacks walking the earth right now. I still think it's risky. You're not getting the guy from last year. And you also know if your offensive line isn't good, you might be getting an unplayable quarterback. You have to get that offensive line better if you're them. And the Jets, and their signing of Justin Fields. Boy, I'm liking having JJ McCarthy for next year. What is it? $4.5 million, $5 million. We'll see what they end up doing with the free agent money. You have a lot that you're sitting on right now. And we're seeing some of these names come off the board. I happen to think we're going to be ordering some fries with a side of John Allen, but we'll find out real soon.
That one, I hope so. I hope you're right. If Fries goes to the Giants today,
that would be a kick in the. You know what?
I'm starting to get a little bit concerned because I really do. I do want a top end guard. Like that's what I get the defensive tackle thing. I get that because as we've gone through our mock drafts and our blueprints, there will be defensive tackles in the draft, and so you sign a veteran one, you get a first round pick. If you don't get, or if you try to piecemeal the guard, I get concerned because I want the run game. I want the red zone game improved. But the other thing to go back to quarterback, the other thing where we as Vikings followers have to rethink things is, Kevin O'Connell was hired here to do this. And I know it feels weird. And I know it feels like it's a risk. And I know that we do not like risks because we've seen risks and most of them fail here as quarterbacks go. But the reality is you did not fire really Spielman. Zim was gone. But I think, Spielman reported to work that day expecting to fire Mike. And they basically called him in and said, sorry, bad news. You're fired too. And I heard Spielman a year and a half ago on his Sirius XM show say, if I could have found a quarterback, I'd still be employed right now. And he's exactly right. Kevin O'Connell was hired to do this. In fact, I would argue that if Kevin O'Connell hadn't attached his future and his job to this move by now, I'd be very disappointed. If he kept going, though, well, I got Darnold, let's hang on to him and let's do this and let's do that. You could have gotten that from 100 guys. So no matter what the result is here, I actually applaud it because in my lifetime as a Vikings fan, I started to watch the team in 1978. Tarkington, who was at the end of his career, and then a little smidge of Culpepper, and that's it. As far as draft picks go, right? Like that's basically it. Kramer, but I'm talking about since 2000, for instance. It was Culpepper, and then it was just a litany of replacements. And they tried on Ponder, and Rick shouldn't have done it. Rick shouldn't have drafted a quarterback. He couldn't do it. But this is a guy who can. I would be losing faith in Kevin O'Connell if he hadn't done this by now. I really would be. Yeah,
the only risk is risk aversion. And over the long stretch, avoiding risk, it's putting outright exposure. It's the same level of risk as attempting to avoid it. You have to have a plan to try to build a Super Bowl contender, or else what the F are we doing here? What are we doing here? And this is the first time I shouldn't say in my lifetime, but certainly in the last decade plus of being a Vikings fan, they are actually going for it. They are trying to win a Super Bowl. Last year they weren't. The year before they weren't. The year before that they weren't. You have to go way, way back in the time machine to when it was like, oh man, they are actually attempting to construct a Super Bowl contending and winning roster. That is what they are doing right now. And you don't need to trust Kevin O'Connell's opinions on quarterbacks if you don't want. I think he would be right at the top of my list of guys that I would trust his quarterback opinion of. And Judd, to the point that you made before, Kevin O'Connell has come out and said, I was known as the quarterback killer in Egan over and over again every single year. It was, nope, don't want him. Nope, don't want him. Nope, don't want him. Then he's seen JJ McCarthy. He's like, that's the one. And now that entire building is betting their careers and their reputations on him. If you can't take something from that, if you don't glean anything from that, I can't help you.
Hey, Thor, and one more thing, and then we'll let you go and immerse yourself back into the first day of free agency here, and we'll definitely catch up again later this week. But you've been a big proponent of how deep this running back class is in the draft, and that the Vikings, if they can get some extra picks, should maybe consider drafting 2 of them. So with that as a backdrop, your thoughts on the 2-year, $20 million contract for Aaron Jones?
I was okay with it. I mean, like in terms of the year one money, it's basically just the inflation from the last year one on the salary cap going up. So to me, that was fine. You saw a difference in the offense between when he was on the field and when he wasn't. The one difference that they have to make this year, it has nothing to do with Aaron Jones or how good or viable he is on the field. It's getting him the complement guy. Right? Like Travion Henderson out of Ohio State, we talked about his evaluation where it was super important for Travion Henderson to have Quinshon Judkins with him in the backfield last year. So Quinshon could do all the meat and potato stuff where you could take that work away from Henderson and then make sure that he's 100% the rest of the year. They go on, he's healthy the whole season, they win the national title. It's the same thing with Aaron Jones. You have to get him a complimentary back that will do the meat and potato stuff, save Aaron Jones from that work. So you get Aaron Jones late into the season. The Vikings are going to be a playoff team next year, and I believe they will be competing for the Super Bowl. You need Aaron Jones healthy December, January, and hopefully beyond. But that is the next step of this. They're going to, I believe that they will be taking a running back on day 2. And if I was them, I would also take one late on day 3 after you have traded down. They don't have a choice. They will be trading down from 24. If the odds were, not just will they pick at 24, if the odds were, will they pick in the first round or not? If it was even money, I would bet not. I would drop the hammer on not. I think they're going to trade to the top of the second round, try to flesh out those picks, and then you can, after you flesh out your picks, you can start maneuvering around the board. But I think you're going to acquire another pick. You're going to use it hopefully late on a second running back. You don't need to sign a Cam Akers or one of these. You don't need to give $3-4 million to anybody else. You can get a guy on a minimum contract that is going to be an NFL contributor, certainly through the end of his rookie contract. And probably beyond. Marcus Yarns from Delaware was a kid that I tossed out yesterday. Hypothetical 6th, 7th round pick, absolute burner, 4.4 speed. The NFL wanted him to work out as a receiver at the NFL Combine. He was one of the only players they asked specifically to work out at another position. He is really, really good, dynamic receiver. So that would be a guy that, if we get a Caleb Johnson on day 2, get a Scadaboo or, some of these names that we have tossed out on day 2, and then augment that with the 6th, 7th round pick. And you have an awesome backfield going forward, and you don't have to pay much for it.
Yeah. Hey, he's Thor Nystrom from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, celebrating day 1, the JJ McCarthy era.
The son.
We made it. We made it. It's your time, JJ. It's your time. We've been waiting a long time for this. Can't wait to see you out there.
JJ, did I see he was at the tourney over the weekend, wasn't he?
At the tourney, yeah.
Big hockey guy.
That guy he's giving out food to the homeless. He's giving out tents and space heaters to the he's at our hockey things. He's wearing the Zach Parise Shattuck jersey. That guy are you telling me that guy wasn't born in Minnesota? Like it's one of us. One of us. Love that kid.
Yep. And
he could score goals. Now. The Wild needs that right now. The Wild should suit him up tomorrow night against the Avalanche.
Have that guy go out and drop that first puck. You want to see the roof come off that place? Drop that freaking first puck. Get it done, Wild.
I love it.
Amazing. All right, Thor. Enjoy the rest of free agency frenzy bonanza day here, and we'll talk to you later this week, man.
I'll see you guys in the text thread.
Right, there he is.
All right, later.
Thor Nystrom. Matthew Berry's FantasyLife.com.
Love the passion, by the way. I love the passion.
One more thing here, because I think what we'll do is we'll wrap. This is our second live stream reacting to breaking news. We'll wrap this pretty soon, and then if they do something else, that warrants jumping in, we'll do it. I feel like everyone is very fixated on, rightfully so, like they have to spend a bunch of money on a guard, which is something that the franchise, even before Kwesi and KOC, has not done in a decade.
Yeah.
Almost a decade.
Yep.
What if they don't? What if it's just like, we're not going to give Will Fries $18 million a year coming off a broken leg. We're going to find a different path. We're not going to spend a bunch of money on a guard.
when you're up against the cap, which this team unfortunately caused itself to be for quite some time because of a QB who I won't name, then I think it's an issue. Like, I think you're sort of stuck, right? Like, it's like we could not justify spending what we had left on one position. Now, I think it's a mistake not to. I think that if you can get a guy coming out of his first contract who, yes, broke his leg, but it's a broken leg, we tend to act like all injuries are death knells. JJ McCarthy, have you seen what happened to him? It was a meniscus. He ain't ever going to play again. So Will Fries broke his leg. That's unfortunate. But I think if they go with we'll get this guy in here and then we'll get that guy in here. And in some ways it mirrors some of what this team has done so long at the quarterback spot, which is we'll get this guy and he'll be great for a year. And then I just want one problem fixed. And by the way, I am willing to give you the benefit of the doubt at defensive tackle. I am willing to say, okay, if you get a veteran guy here, you draft a guy, you develop something there, I'm fine with it. Now, would I personally like a big spend on a defensive tackle? Yes, but I'm fine with that. But if you try to do what you've done, repeating the same mistake over and over at guard of, we know what's best, we'll fix it. I mean, Kevin O'Connell came out and talked chapter and verse, and he was 100% right about what they need to do. And because they didn't, when they got to the two most crucial games at the crucial time of year, in part because of that, they got their ass whooped. So I'll be very disappointed if they don't spend at the guard spot, especially.
I would say this. If they determine, listen, Will Fries is a good player, but this is a market where apparently good players are making great player money. Milton Williams on the other side of the ball, he's not Aaron Donald from 3 years ago. He just made $26 million a year. That is going to be a problem for us in 2 years or 3 years if it's a 4-year deal, especially with Jefferson's contract and Darrisaw's contract. That we got to draw a line somewhere. I would rather they shift to a plan B of like Brandon Scherf or Kevin Zeitler, who, by the way, even at age 33 or 35, those guys are better right now than Will Fries is. They don't solve the problem for the next 3 or 4 years, but I'd rather pay $8 million for 1 year of Kevin Zeitler than pay $80 million against my will over 4 years for a guy that I don't think deserves it. So I think there's, if you see a note that says Will Fries signs with the Giants or something, then what's the plan B?
The Patrick McCarry contract to me would have been very palatable.
Yeah. So but Patrick McCarry maybe didn't want to live in Minnesota or something.
Have you seen our rankings? Everyone wants to live here and play for the Vikings and go to that facility. No, but I'm just saying we're seeing certain guys sign for prices where it appears from what we've been seeing and heard from Doogie that the Vikings are one of a couple of teams or 3 teams involved on Fries, and they're fixated there. So that clearly tells me that they want to come away at the end of the day with Fries, because McCarry was a guy, when I look at that contract, I would have certainly stepped in and said, oh, okay, I'll up that a little bit and be comfortable with that.
Yeah. And I guess Fries would be great. Yes, sir. I'd like some fries with that. That'd be amazing.
I can't take this.
The puns are endless.
I just said it and I thought, oh man, I can make a pun. And then I'm like, no, I'm not going to.
But I think they've done such a good job of, they literally have no bad contracts on their books right now. They have a couple where it's like, okay, the last year that Josh Oliver deal, let's smooth that out. But there's nothing. There's some teams that are just like buried in bad contracts, and the worst thing you can do is get weird on a Will Fries contract, and now you have a terrible contract on your books 2 years from now because he's an average player making $20 million a year or something.
Yep.
Because remember, his breakout was like a 5-game sample last year. Versus, all right, let's spend $8 million, $9 million a year on Scherf or Zeitler, solve it for a minute, and then have full flexibility again next offseason, either in free agency or the best thing would be you find a guard in the draft and that player makes nothing.
Yeah.
So it is not Will Fries or bust for me. I'm not going to get caught up in overpaying someone on a 4-year contract.
I'm caught up in the fact that they have clearly spent a good portion of the day on him, so they think he's really good. So like that's the thing. If they were out, and they weren't talking to him or they made a cursory phone call, then I'm fine with it. But it feels like they have dove into the Will Fries pool, and that they're swimming around right now, and other guys are coming off the market. And then my feeling is, okay, that's fine, but you're going to probably have to go to more than you're comfortable with. But if you think he's that good, that's fine. If you don't, my question would be, why have you spent all day in his swimming pool? Why are you in the Will Fry swimming pool when the McCarry swimming pool was out there? Yeah. Did you jump in that one?
Yeah, but maybe the chlorine wasn't great. There was you didn't want to jump into that.
Stings your eyes.
Yeah, my eye right now. I got a sty I'm dealing with right now. I'm grinding through this episode right now, winking off on the side.
Styes and canker sores. They're so small and they appear to be nothing until they impact your day.
You ever have both at the same time? Oh,
no.
Torture.
Styes are gross too. Because
like your head hurts.
Oh my God, I look like the Elephant Man.
Yeah. A reminder, by the way, that a few hours ago, tickets to the 2025 Purple Daily Draft Party presented by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning went on sale. They're now on sale. At least a few hundred of you at last check 2 hours ago have already jumped in. So tickets are going pretty fast, it looks like. And VIP especially, limited tickets are available. And I believe there are still VIP tickets left. I have not checked in like 2 hours. So apologies if you go to scorenorth.com/draft and it's too late. But we've got general admission tickets for $10, VIP tickets for $125, which includes premium balcony seating, a couple drink vouchers, food voucher, a Purple Daily snapback hat. And it's back at the Fillmore in Minneapolis, Thursday, April 24th at 7 p.m. scorenorth.com/draft. Hell, even if they trade back and trade out, we're still going to have a great night celebrating this show, this audience, this football team. So check them out. Tickets available, scorenorth.com/draft. All right, boys. I think that's the end of live stream number 2 here.
Are you sure about that? Because like we're gonna
let's hover over the let's
8 guys sign 8 guys.
Let's see here.
Sure about that?
Yeah, we did say goodbye, and then they immediately signed or agreed to terms with Isaiah Rodgers here. So we just click the refresh button.
It's not a huge signing, but it's still a signing.
Just want to make sure. No, I think we're good here. We'll keep an eye on Will Fries. We'll keep an eye on Byron Murphy Jr., the Jonathan Allen visit, and we may even be back with you before the day or the night are over here. Purple Daily, where we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.